guys, another episode of Bikes with Drew. This one here, as I mentioned previously, we're going to be running through a bunch of videos real quick to try and get this bike up into rideable condition. We're going to be doing the fork. The fork is probably one of the biggest upgrades you can make to a bicycle. This one specifically, this is a coil or a spring suspension in the front. What I'm putting on is an air suspension. The one that I purchased is one from China, but I really want to see what the difference is versus, I've ridden one, like I've ridden Fox, I've ridden Marzocchi, I've ridden some Manitou stuff. So I want to see what the value for money is for something coming from China. I've seen a couple reviews online from other riders that have done it and they were kind of on the fence about stuff, but I figured I want to see for myself and try it out. One of the big differences though between coil and air, other than the fact that you can adjust it by putting more or less air into it, is the weight that you're going to save. Because there's so many springs and stuff involved in a coil fork, going over to an air fork, one of the first things you're going to notice is how much lighter it is. So stick around, I'm going to show you some cool tricks and tips on how to not have everything come apart and explode on you, and we're going to change the fork on this frame. Alright, so I've gone ahead and taken off the front wheel here. It's a good idea to do it first. You could do it afterwards, but that would just be silly. That gets it out of the way so that it's not, interfering with what you're trying to do. So a cool trick that I learned from working on bikes years ago was whenever you take off a front fork, if you're not planning on re-greasing or changing anything like that in your headset, is to just put two zip ties together. If you have a really long zip tie, that would work too. And as you're sliding the fork out, shove the zip tie back in and close it off. There's so many little ball bearings and spacers and snap rings and things like that, that if you don't want to pull everything off and re-grease and all that, if everything's working fine like this one is, that's just going to save you such a headache of having to put it all back together and forgetting where this piece goes and the cat took that piece and et cetera, right? So I've already gone ahead and put two zip ties together so that I can lock all that in. And what we're going to do is basically the opposite of how we were putting on the handlebars before. So what you want to do is loosen the screws that are holding, or I should say the bolts that are holding your stem on. This one here's got one on each side, so there's one there and one there. Go ahead and get those good and loose. They don't have to come right off, but as long as they're loose, you should be able to accomplish what we're trying to do here. And then you've also got the bolt on top. That's what holds the stem and squishes everything down into your fork. So because I've already loosened the bolts holding the stem on, I'm going to go ahead and loosen that bolt on the top of the stem. And what that's going to do is basically release everything here. So you want to make sure that you're holding on to the fork so that it doesn't take off on you and fall to the floor. And you then have a bit of a mess on your hands. I've already felt the fork fall out there, so that's good. So I've taken off what's on the top. I've got my zip tie ready here, and I'm already going to push the bottom that's come. Oh, so there's the stem. Good thing I caught that. And then as you're pulling the fork away, you just want to keep everything together so that you don't lose anything. So you can go ahead and let that go. Handlebars go here. There's also the aluminum spacers that are on top. We don't need those right now. So I've kept all of the headset together. I'm going to shove that zip tie through there, and then I'm going to close it off so that nothing can escape or get out of order. Because there is an order to what goes where with these, and you don't want to mess any of that up. There we go. So I'll give you guys an idea of what that looks like. As you can see, there's a zip tie holding everything together. I'm such a donkey. I thought I was recording and I wasn't actually. So the next step when you're putting on a different fork, if you've bought a new one, is to install a star nut. So I'll show you guys what a star nut looks like. It's that piece right in there. And basically what this does, this is what that top bolt on top of your stem is locking into. and pulling to squish everything together. I'm not even going to attempt to try and explain it. There's different ways to do it. I use a bit of an unconventional way to do it. Find another video to look at it. If you mess this up, you basically ruin your whole fork, and you've got to start over. So be super cautious with this step. Super important. But, you know, unfortunately I can't show it to you. The other thing that you need to do is potentially cut down your tube. So if I went ahead and measured the old head tube, it's 8 inches, like right on the nose. This new one here is 8 and then just shy of another ½ inch. And so originally I said, well, I'm gonna have to just cut that down, that's not a big deal. But the more I think about it, the more I think I'm gonna try it just like this. What that's gonna do is have me less bent over on the frame. I'm actually gonna be, my hands will be a ½ inch higher, so it'll allow me to sit a bit more straight backed. I don't know what that's gonna change, but I figure, hey, I'm gonna try it out. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm just not gonna cut it, and that's that. Saves us a step, right? The next thing you're also gonna need is the crown race off of the old fork. So if you have a look on here, I've already started to pull it away a little bit. This is called a crown race, and that's the last piece that's gonna push everything up inside here. The good thing about both the forks I'm using and most forks on the market now is that they have this little notch right here built into them, and that allows you to get a screwdriver under there and very, very slowly work your way around, pulling that crown race off. So, like I said, I've already started that a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and get it the rest of the way off here. And once you've gotten it to a certain point, that should just slide off very easily. And you then put that on your new fork. Like this. That's gonna slide right down. Now don't worry if it's not sitting all the way down here. It's not the end of the world, because when you put that back on there and squish everything down, that's gonna press it into place, which is what you want. You want that to be flush with the bottom of the crown here and have everything stuck together. So now for the fun part. We're basically gonna do the opposite of what we just did. I'm gonna slide the old fork back inside there after I've cut the zip tie, being careful to keep everything together. Spacers go back on, handlebar and stem goes back on, and then I'll clamp everything back down. So with your snips, what you want to do is make sure you're holding everything in place again and cut that zip tie. So now that that zip tie is out, oh, see, I caught the top C-ring there. Oh boy, okay. So top C-ring goes back in place. It's a good thing, you know, that I was holding all that there, because that could have been a bit of a disaster. Going to slide the new fork up inside. That's going to come through nicely like that. Okay, let's put on the spacers right there. So now that that's in, you can go ahead and put the handlebars back on. And so I'm already running into that stem, or that top tube being longer. So I'm gonna have to add another spacer. I've got another one even if I need to, on the top to be able to get it to have that gap. There we go. So what you're looking for is, I'm gonna move the camera to show you here. What you're looking for is that gap between the top of the head tube and the top of the stem, so that there's a little bit of play in there so you can tighten everything down. So there we go. So now that that's back in again, I mean, I've had better spinning headsets than that, but you know, very little resistance. That feels good. New fork is on. Perfect. So now, let's go ahead and reinstall the front wheel again. And there you go. Front fork swapped. So now, with this bike having new suspension in the front, you're going to have to go ahead and reset the sag in it, but I think I did pretty good with my settings already. You know, the nice thing about this fork too is it's got a lockout. So if I am doing like a long bike ride somewhere, I can just lock out the suspension, and it's not going to be squishy anymore, right? It's going to stay down, which helps if you're, you know, riding on the road or don't want to lose much of your energy that you're expelling while you're pedaling. So there you go, guys. Fork's on now. You know, more and more stuff's going to be coming along. I'm going to probably try and release a video, I think every day now at this point. You know, I got some cool stuff still to go on the bike. I'm super pumped to put on the brakes. But yeah, you know, thanks so much for watching. Go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. But again, no pressure. And go ride your bikes and enjoy.